X-axis improvements. X-axis belt tensioner and also X-axis end stops for X-axis guide rod here and here. In a 3D printer design of this type, it is really necessary to have X-axis guide rod end stops, as is explained by the following. The X-axis guide rods do not seat completely inside these pockets here that they're supposed to slide into. As a result, it is left to the Z-axis guide rods to absorb all the force of the tension of the belt, which tends to cause them to bend inwards. So it's very important to have end stops here that will move in, contact these X-axis guide rods, and stop that problem from happening, resulting in a great increase in accuracy. Okay. These are the set screws, 5/16 inch, one up there, one down there. The X-axis belt tensioner fits through the hole right there. It fits right in. Now there's the pulley right there for the X-axis belt, the new pulley position. Original screw, original pulley, longer belt, two set screws, and this is threaded. This hole right here that this fits through, it's threaded. That's important. Number 832 machine screws. I had really intended to make something kind of fancier, but I never did do it. As far as a knob, you turn it, it engages here, pushes against the carriage and pulls this outward, and thus tensions the belt. So, to make a detailed explanation, this is the carriage. This is the X-axis, Z-axis. You know, according to the design, they fit in here. This is a cross section of the carriage, right in the middle, normal to the Y-axis of the 3D printer. So, okay, and you have a belt here for the X-axis. Creates a lot of tension pulling this that way, but this is the gap between the end of the X-axis guide rod and the final fit of the pocket. What that does is it causes the Z-axis guide rod to bow because it has to absorb the force from the tension of the X-axis belt. So what to do? Disassemble this, remove the Z-axis guide rods. Okay, now you just have this, the carriage here. Okay, in order to drill the first hole for the alignment, you need to have a drill small enough for a pilot hole, like 1/8 inch, and then something to provide a guide for the drill to keep it centered in this hole here. So, wrap a paper towel around it. The drill bit has to be centered in the hole. The key is to make kind of a bushing to keep it centered. So what I did was paper towel, just wrap it on. Oh yeah, after cutting it into a strip, that is. or paper or something like that would be suitable. Okay, so you got like an 8mm cylindrical shape there. Wet that with water, and that will keep it centered in the hole. Okay, so that fits in there, and in the end, after you've gone all the way in, you drill a hole through here, right there, and you have a perfectly centered hole for each, a pilot hole for each center line there. Then what you need is a 1/4 inch drill to make the pilot hole for the 5/16 inch tap. And also, before drilling these holes for tap and tapping them, clamp the part together and pad it with a couple of blocks of wood or something like that to protect the part from being damaged by the clamp. Now you can put a set screw here. And then that back stops the 8mm X-axis guide rods so that they will handle the compressive forces that are generated by the tension of the X-axis belt, and thus you can have a perfectly straight, perfectly parallel, perfectly vertical Z-axis guide rods. Now, that is important to the following, which is this: the X-axis belt tensioner. Okay, there's a hole through the middle of the carriage for the Z-axis to X-axis, and the center of that hole has the original pulley for the X-axis belt inside. Take the pulley out, take the screw out, keep them, because they'll be used in this. Print out the X-axis belt guide. After printing, you'll probably have to do a little filing, maybe a little sanding, to get it to fit smoothly and slide into that hole there. So here's the new mounting for the X-axis belt, the X-axis pulley and axle. The belt comes all the way back here. There are a couple of adjustment screws. They are machine screws. Those two machine screws that you saw earlier, the 832. So this hole right here, threaded from 832. That and that. And also, as you saw earlier, of course, these don't sit on the original adjustment screws. There's an offset so the two don't contact. X-axis belt tensioner, original pulley, original screw for an axle, 832 machine screws, both holes tapped for 832. Tensioning it, being able to have a finger tight feeling when you twist the belt halfway, or just being able to feel it. You know, a little bit of turn goes a long way once you get it tight, so. Yeah. And not over tighten. Well, to explain it more accurately, Make sure that these Z-axis guide rods are perfectly vertical, perfectly at a right angle to the X and Y axes, and perfectly parallel. Make sure the X-axis rods are fully seated in the opposite carriage all the way to the end. First. Okay, that will leave some gap here. Right here. But nothing there. Tighten the set screws until that gap is closed and the bottom of the set screw is contacting the end of the X-axis guide rods. And then turn the screw just a little snug, like thumb tight, finger tight, you know. And then that will ensure that the tension of the belt will be supported compressively by these X-axis rods and maintain the distance between these two carriages, and the Z-axis rods remain vertical, straight, parallel. Install the X-axis belt, put it around the pulley over here, the carriage for the hot end right here, in this little piece in here in the middle where you bring it around and then adjust it likewise. And also, for that matter, you need to print this out. If you've just got your Folgertech, one thing you can do is don't cut the belt, just leave it, you know, do the X-axis part last and leave the full length of belt, and then just sort of attach it with like a zip tie or something up there in a roll in a way that's out of the way, won't hook up on anything. And then that'll make it so that you can print out this X-axis belt tensioner. And then you won't have to buy more belt. You know, and then you take that apart after this is printed and you add this. Though I would suggest doing this with the back stops during the assembly, because you don't need to print anything new out in order to do this. Okay, that explains all that, and thank you for watching. Best of luck.